All praises to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Raha Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, laboring in his truth in all sincerity. Revelation 12 and 12, and I'll read this in the KJV. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So I'm going to make this really fast. I just did a video on this and briefly went into this particular organization or this group known as the Wide Awakes. And this is the organization that the alleged would-be assassin supposedly was a member or a part of, or at the very least he had ties to this particular group. So I've never heard of this particular group, but at least up until these recent events have taken place. And I'm just now starting to gather little bits and pieces of info that's been surrounding this case. And once again, this particular group, and you see here in this article off of Newsweek, who are the Wide Awakes? What we know about the group tied to Cole Allen, and Cole Allen was the alleged would-be assassin at the event that just took place at the White House this past weekend. This particular article was published a little bit earlier today, April 26th at approximately 4:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it was later updated approximately an hour and 20 minutes later at about 6:14 p.m. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. Once again, it's titled, Who Are the Wide Awakes? What we know about the group tied to Cole Allen. And this is off of Newsweek. Cole Thomas Allen, the suspect arrested in the shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, has been linked to a political group called the Wide Awakes. The New York Post first reported and is believed to have attended a No Kings protest in California, where he attended college and worked as a teacher. Allen, 31, of Torrance, California, faces charges of 2 counts of using a firearm during a crime of violence and 1 count of assault on an officer using a dangerous weapon after breaching security at the Washington Hilton on Saturday night and shooting a law enforcement agent who was not seriously injured. Allen's sister told Secret Service and Montgomery County Police on Sunday her brother often made radical statements and frequently referenced a plan to do something to fix what he saw as problems in the country, adding he was part of the Wide Awakes. The connection to the Wide Awakes, a group whose name dates back to a Civil War political movement linked to President Abraham Lincoln, has raised questions about the suspect's motivations and political affiliations, particularly after President Donald Trump invoked Lincoln in his own response to the shooting. Who is Cole Allen? Allen was a highly educated tutor and amateur video game developer opposed to the policies of Trump, the Associated Press reported. Allen earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena in 2017, according to his LinkedIn profile. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Ben Tang, a computer science professor at California State University, Dominguez Hills, told the AP Allen took several of his classes before graduating in 2025. He was a very good student indeed, always sitting in the first row of my class, paying attention and frequently emailing me with coursework questions. Tang wrote, soft-spoken, very polite, a good fellow. I am very shocked to see the news. I'll scroll down a little bit. There you have a picture of the suspect there. As you can see, they have him hog-tied, laying on his stomach. Who are the Wide Awakes? The original Wide Awakes were a Republican political organization founded in Hartford, Connecticut on March 3rd, 1860, dedicated to electing Lincoln to the presidency according to the National Parks Service, NPS. Founded by 5 young law clerks, the group took its name to symbolize their political awareness. What distinguished the Wide Awakes from other 19th century political clubs was their youth, effectiveness, and distinctive uniforms. Kepi hats, capes made of enameled canvas, and large kerosene lamps carried during Lincoln torchlight parades. Members ranged in age from 15 to 40, making it one of the first political organizations formed by, of, and for young Americans. So this was founded in Hartford, Connecticut, March 3rd, 1860. I'll be honest, I have never heard of this particular organization. So, and it's funny because I'll probably ask around, my father's side of the family is originally from South Carolina, and there's a lot of men on my father's side of the family who can attribute that, their uncles or their grandfather actually fought in the Civil War. And my mother's side of the family is from New York City and Baltimore, Maryland. So I'll ask around people in my family or even other elders that I speak to from time to time and ask them if they've ever heard of this group, because I've never heard of this group. No one that I've ever spoken to has ever mentioned anything like this. And I have a lot of these type of discussions revolving around Civil War history and stuff. And I just never recall anyone ever bringing up any particular organization known as the Wide Awakes. But I'll continue reading. The Wide Awakes were a political curiosity in the North, but viewed with suspicion and fear in the South, where newspapers exaggerated the group's paramilitary aspects. Their largest event was the Grand Procession Parade in New York City, the biggest pro-Lincoln rally in the U.S., with thousands of members traveling from across the country to participate. The parade took over 2 hours to pass. After Lincoln's election on November 6, 1860, many Wide Awakes shifted their activism to enlisting in the U.S. Army at the outbreak of the Civil War. Now, that part, I can understand that. If there was an actual group back in 1860 that pretty much dissipated and a lot of their members ended up actually enlisting into the military in order to fight a civil war, that much I can understand. But to sit here and to say that this group from 1860 up until right now, 2026, that this has been a long withstanding group that has an active membership, that part I'm not too certain I believe that. And I'm not too certain that it's just something to keep an eye on. I don't want to say too much in this particular video, but it's something to keep an eye on. It just, something ain't adding up there. Something is not adding up. And it wouldn't take much to find somebody whose family was in this particular country and is actually rooted here long before the Civil Rights Movement, long before the Great Depression, long before the start of the jazz age and stuff like that. It's not hard, especially if you're from the South, especially if your family is from the South. It's not hard at all to get into this type of history. Somebody in your family would have heard of this or would have been a member of this. This sounds like something that was here in 1860, disappeared, and now just recently, like in the past, maybe year and a half, 2 years, maybe I'll give it 5 years, it somehow just resurfaced. And all of a sudden now there's would-be assassins coming out of this thing. Something just isn't adding up. So I'll continue reading. The Modern Wide Awakes movement. A Modern Wide Awakes network was launched in 2020, drawing direct inspiration from the original movement, according to Amplifier.org, one of the founding organizations. The New Wide Awakes are a network of thousands of artists, cultural workers, and activists driven by the most urgent social and political issues of our time. The Modern Network describes itself as one of the largest collaborations of cultural leaders in U.S. history, with nationwide civic actions organized before and after the 2020 election. That sounds about accurate. Like I said, maybe this has come back around. This was something 1860. It disappeared, and maybe it came back around 2020. That sounds about right. But if it's saying something that was continuous, over 150 years, I'm not buying that at all. The network officially launched with an October 2020 anniversary march down Broadway in New York City, recreating the original Wide Awakes Grand Procession. Wide Awakes imagery was also featured during the Alicia Keys performance at the NFL 2020 season kickoff event. The group's tagline, "Individually we are asleep, together we are awake," echoes the political awareness philosophy of the original 1860 organization. So that's exactly what it is. This is something that somebody just recently, within the past 6 to 7 years now, it looks like somebody is trying to bring this organization back. Something that was long forgotten. Now they've somehow brought it back. They've managed to bring it back. And now you have would-be presidential assassins coming out of this organization. How convenient is that? According to Amplifier, the modern movement frames its work as a response to a national choice between chaos or community. And apparently they've chosen chaos so far. It operates through chapters that organize art-driven activism, voter engagement, and community building. The connection between Allen and the modern Wide Awakes group remains under investigation, and it is unclear what specific role, if any, his alleged affiliation may have played in the attack. I'll scroll down a little bit. Allen's anti-Trump politics. Allen's online presence and political activity show a clear opposition to Trump, dating back at least to the 2024 presidential election. Allen contributed $25 to a Democratic Party political action committee supporting Vice President Kamala Harris for president. A yard sign at his family home supported a local candidate for judge. It doesn't seem like a guy that's donating $25 to a presidential candidate. I don't know. None of this is adding up. But for someone to donate $25 to a presidential candidate and then have the ability to get that close to a president and vice president and let off 5 to 8 shots, as I read in my previous video's article, this whole story just seems like one big crock of shit. I very rarely believe anything that I see on television or even online nowadays, And this is part of the reason why I really haven't watched television going back to like maybe whatever year Boondocks, season 5 was the last season of Boondocks. Whatever year that was, that Boondocks, was taken off the air. I may have sat there and watched repeats over the years, and I may have watched a few Knick games over the years, but I really can't tell you the last time I sat in front of a television and watched anything. I hear people talking about shows like Power, Empire, and, a bunch of other shows that have come out over the years, and I couldn't tell you one character, one story plot to any of that shit. I haven't watched television in years because there's so much bullshit on there that, it's like my dad used to call it the idiot box. I just can't sit there and watch it, and I really haven't sat there and watched television in well over 15 years now, or going back to whatever that last year Boondocks was on. But I'm going to read a little bit more. I've studied people like Abraham Lincoln. It's the people that make the biggest impact. They're the ones that they go after, Trump said. When you look at the people when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names here, the big names, and I hate to say it, I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. All right, so, okay, let's see what's in this guy's manifesto. Cole Allen's manifesto, what he wrote. A White House official confirmed to Newsweek that Allen sent a manifesto to his family minutes before opening fire at the Washington Hilton on Saturday night. The document, which the official describes as full of anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric, clearly stated Allen wanted to target administration officials. Trump referenced the manifesto during a Fox News interview Sunday morning, calling Allen a sick guy and saying that the document made clear Allen hates Christians. Trump said the manifesto would be released later. Keep that part in mind, that he hates Christians. All right, so that's pretty much all I'm going to read. I'm not going to go too much further into this. I think I got the key points out of it. Oh, let me read this right here. The manifesto referenced grievances Allen attributed to the Trump administration, including alleged abuses against detainees and civilians abroad. Allen, who described himself in the document as half black, half white, signed off using the same self-styled nickname, Friendly Federal Assassin, that law enforcement officials told the AP he had used in writing sent to family before the attack. I'm going to go back to this part here. Allen, who described himself in the document as half black, half white, and that's what I was mentioning in my previous video that I just did a few moments before this. This particular individual right here, I think I may have said he kind of looks like a low budget Steph Curry or Chris Broussard, probably as well, from ESPN. But this particular individual right here, I kind of suspected that he was biracial, and I think I saw that in a earlier article when I first came across this stuff. But and like I mentioned, so you've had, James Garfield, McKinley, Lincoln, Trump, Kennedy, and maybe a couple of others. But these particular presidents that I mentioned, some were assassinated, some had potential attempts on their lives. None of them, as far as I know, none of them had potential Jake assassins or would-be assassins. So here we see this thing starting to shape up here. And this particular individual right here that you see on the screen with the graduation cap and gown on, I don't know if his mother or his father, which one would be when he described himself as half black, half white. I don't know which one, the mother or the father, would be the so-called black side. But we kind of see for the first time in U.S. history, as far as I know, a sitting president and vice president was actually just a few short feet away from potentially being assassinated. So this is why I started off with Revelation 12, and I'm going to get right back into that. And I'll pick it up from, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And what we are about to see here, potentially for the first time in history, a sitting president was almost assassinated, allegedly, by a Jake. And this is the scripture. I went into Jeremiah 30:7 in my previous video here. In all history, and I'm reading this in the NLT, in all history, there has never been such a time of terror. It will be a time of trouble for my people Israel. Yet in the end, they will be saved. But that's the point that I was trying to make. This is potentially the first time that a presidential candidate or a sitting president was possibly targeted for assassination by a Jake. In all of history, there has never been such a time of terror. And I do believe that this may be it. I believe that what you're about to see now are real, contingency measures that the ruling class elite has had waiting for this particular type of moment right here. One that would actually happen naturally, or one that they can orchestrate. So I believe that this is what we're seeing right now taking place, is for the first time in history, potentially a Jake has tried to assassinate a president. So alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even a time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And I do believe that right now, right here, this is it. This takes it to the next level. I think that this particular incident right here, we are about to see it get taken to the next level. And just look at this name. Let's go back to this. The Wide Awakes. You know, it's almost scripted. And it is scripted. It's who are the Wide Awakes. That shit sounds like shit. That's the way Jake talks. You understand what I'm saying? Don't sleep. Don't let them niggas catch you sleeping, the Wide Awakes. You understand? This how niggas be talking. Niggas need to wake up. You understand? Wake up, cause niggas sleeping. Ain't that the shit that Childish Gambino was singing in that movie Get Out? So here we, listen, this is what we're seeing right now. And it's about to be a whole figurative assault on this so-called woke ideology, you know. And for the longest, blacks, so-called blacks in this country, and you see it a lot over the past few years, especially on social media. There's one particular fairly popular, or at least well-known, podcaster on YouTube. And he goes into this every so often, this whole woke ideology doesn't really have nothing to do with black Americans. It's something that black Americans started in terms of our dialogue, how we communicate with each other. And I just gave a couple of examples, like, don't let the niggas catch you sleeping, stay, it's basically telling you to stay aware, especially when it comes to certain types of, the racism and stuff that happens in society. It was basically being aware of covert and overt racism and being able to keep yourself in a position to maneuver in a society despite of that covert or overt racism. That's all woke ideology ever had to do with. Somehow white liberals got involved and completely turned wokeism, and that's some shit they made up anyway, wokeism. They turned that into, all kind of other shit, LGBTQ shit, somehow staying woke or being woke had everything to do with everything except what its initial, definition was. It was more of an unwritten, one of those things known as an unwritten rule. And you talk to guys, you talk to your friends, you talk to your family, and y'all would talk to each other and basically, hey, if the cops ever pull you over, this is how you conduct yourself. Hey, if you're ever doing this and some white guys accuse you of this, this is how you conduct yourself. This is what being woke was. You were basically just aware of whatever covert or overt types of racism and prejudice that you were bound to deal with growing up in this particular society as a so-called black person. The left took it and ran with it and gave it every unscrupulous ass fucking they made every correlation that they could possibly make. So now this new term that they made up, wokeism, had every single thing to do with far left liberal fucking Democrat fucking policies and ideology. And so you started seeing a lot of blacks just walking away from that shit like, nah, y'all got that. We don't associate that shit with us no more. You understand what I'm saying? So, once the Democrats got in that shit and woke started meaning shit like boys can be girls and girls can be boys, black Americans actually did the right thing. So-called black Americans started disassociating themselves from that shit. Like, yo, we don't want to have nothing to do with that wokeism shit, that woke ideology. Y'all niggas took it and gave it a brand new fucking meaning. So y'all own that shit now. Esau picked up on that. Esau picked up on it. So what does he do? He brings up some shit that damn near nobody ever fucking heard of. Some shit that was basically fucking, dead in the water, a movement that nobody heard of going back to the damn 1860s. It just now started resurfacing around damn 2020. Esau sees that, okay, nobody has, blacks are starting to damn disassociate themselves from being woke. So what does he do? He fucking brings back the damn Wide Awakes. This fucking organization. Who are the Wide Awakes? What we know about the group tied to Cole Allen. Like, if you can't see the shit that Esau does, man, yo, this is the type of shit Esau does. You understand? So, and not only do you resurface this fucking group, now you got would-be fucking presidential assassins coming out this shit. So, not only that, but whole fucking biracial would-be assassins. You know, they're making it clear that this dude described himself as half black, half white. You understand what I'm saying? So, it is what it is at this point. You know, there's a lot I could say on this, but I'm trying to, you know, parse my words here a little bit, so to speak. But basically, like I was saying, now you have a damn alleged biracial would-be assassin who's part of this group, and this fucking group that supposedly was started before the Civil War to help get Lincoln elected in order to free slaves. Like, what the fuck kind of shit is that? Like, this is the most ridiculous shit I've heard, you know. Like I mentioned earlier, if I was to ask people on my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, if I was to call family members or get in contact with older people, people will flat out tell you, damn, that shit so old, we forgot all about that shit. You know, like, damn, that shit coming back, like, I haven't heard that fucking shit, the Wide Awakes, in literally in over a fucking century. Now all of a sudden they're back with would-be fucking assassins. This is how you know Esau is one lying ass nigga. So, and you know what? And watch, all of a sudden you start seeing members of this supposed organization. Watch, they start popping up out the woodworks now. They're going to all be on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all over the fucking radio and shit. You're going to be seeing these niggas all over the internet, basically trying to state what their history is and what their modern day mission is. And, you know, it's just all kind of silly shit. And you can kind of see the tactics that Esau uses, how desperate he's getting now. These are desperation tactics. You know, and like I mentioned earlier, Revelation 12:12, you know, the devil knows he has but a short time left. So these are the damn type of fucking tactics that he's going to start bringing out now and using. I'm going to try to start wrapping this video up here real quick here, but let me just go into the Google AI overview. The Wide Awakes were a massive youth-driven Republican political organization in 1860 dedicated to electing Abraham Lincoln, known for wearing capes and carrying kerosene torches, and they represented a often working class anti-slavery and sometimes anti-slavery movement. The movement grew rapidly to over 100,000 members, significantly impacting the 1860 election before many joined the Union Army. Scroll down a little bit. Modern Reinterpretation, a modern open source network of artists and activists, revived the name Wide Awakes in 2020, aiming to radically reimage the future through creative collaboration and social justice activism, according to the Wide Awakes website. I visited this website a little bit earlier when I first came across this article, and this is it here. The Wide Awakes are an open source network who radically reimagine the future through creative collaboration. So as you can see here, kind of look like some, I'm not going to even say it, but it kind of reminds me of some LGBT looking shit. But so when I came here, I was kind of looking to see if it was showing exactly some of the members, and as you can see, she has on a mask on her face, but she kind of looks like a Young Jake sister right there. That's a Young Jake brother right there. So I went further into the website and just started getting some pictures off of it. So you zoom into these pictures, you can clearly see that's a Jake. They all have on masks. She looks like that. She could be an Elamite right there. I'm not very sure though. But a lot of these look like Jakes. A lot of these look like Jakes, and this is the time that we're in right now. You know, we're in the time of the great accusation about to take place. And it looks like they have found their sacrificial lamb in this dude that supposedly was firing shots that close to the president and vice president. This is again off the website, and you can clearly see these are all Jake women here, all throwing up the damn, I guess you can say that's a victory formation or a victory stance, but that kind of looks like the black fist, And this is what this is, this is these wide awakes right here. And they, somehow, some way, as much as Jake tried to stay out of all that bullshit, when all that Somali shit was going down, Jake wasn't out there marching and protesting. When all that other shit was happening, in fact, you had whole fucking shit going on online with niggas saying, yo, stay out of it. We ain't getting involved. We ain't marching and protesting. Everybody else needs to hold their own nuts. That was the exact verbiage. That was the exact sentiment. We're not getting involved. Let everyone hold their nuts. Like I said, Esau picked up on that shit and was like, no. We need y'all niggas to get involved. So if y'all not going to voluntarily get involved, we'll create an incident that's going to eventually get you niggas involved. So, that's what we're seeing here. So let me see if I got any other pictures off that website that I took. I took this one earlier. I couldn't really tell if he was a Jake or if he was of the northern tribe. Incidentally, he's blowing the damn trumpet. So that's a symbolic picture right there. He's actually blowing the trumpet. Now, he probably doesn't have any earthly idea why he's blowing it, outside of whatever they're doing, whatever their organization was doing on that particular day. But we understand the blowing of the trumpet to mean a warning, to warn the people. So with that being said, I'm going to start wrapping this up. We're going to 1 Peter 5:8. Stay alert. And this is in the NLT. Stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now take place with this supposed attempt, or this supposed attempt on a president and vice president. Like I said earlier, he got off 5 to 8 shots according to the reports that came out earlier. And you had a sitting president and vice president just sitting a few feet away from each other and from the actual shooting. So stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And now he's found a way to somehow incorporate the Southern Kingdom into a lot of this. Initially, this was only like really, really, really affecting the Northern Kingdom in terms of deportation and stuff. But what we have in here right now is potentially a individual who could be of the Southern Kingdom here. He is biracial, but if his father is of the line, then there's a possibility that they are going to pin this on Jake, specifically Judah. And I do suspect that that individual is a Judite. So the scriptures tell us that the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Like I mentioned, the Southern Kingdom, but particularly Judah, has been making it very vocal that they're not getting involved in nobody's shit. whatever issues you have with the government or whatever, Judah has been very vocal in holding your own nuts and saying that and making that shit clear. And they've been saying this now going back for some time. We're not getting involved with anything until you start coming up off of what you owe us. And now what you're seeing is Esau, Edom, basically drawing Judah in. Let me go to Revelation 12 and 10 real fast. And that's what it says. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our power, and the power of his anointed one. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night. And that's what we're seeing now. The accuser is putting this on Judah right now, the southern kingdom. And this right here, we are literally like real close to this shit collapsing, this shit being brought down, ultimately leading to the deliverance. We are like real close right now, because we can clearly see this was a desperate attempt right here. This was a desperate attempt to draw Judah into this, when Judah has basically kind of like checked out of this whole political thing because of a whole argument about reparations. You're not doing anything for us. Why the hell should we keep going out there and voting? Everyone needs to hold their own nuts. Esau basically says, okay, that's how you feel, we'll bring you in. Look, some one of y'all niggas just tried to kill the damn president. So that's the kind of games that Esau is playing. So with that being said, though, I'm going to end this with 2 Timothy chapter 3. And I'll scroll down to verses 12 and 13. And I'll read this in the NLT. Yes, and everyone who wants to live a godly life in Hamashiach Yahushua will suffer persecution, but evil people and impostors will flourish. They will deceive others and will themselves be deceived. I pray this has been edifying and reaches the ears it's supposed to reach. Shalom.